The 1980s were a revolutionary time for heavy metal, with the foundations of the genre having been laid down through the 70s by progenitors like Black Sabbath, Deep Purple, Led Zeppelin and AC/DC. The following decade saw countless devotees taking the fundamentals of these bands and morphing them into various stylistic derivatives. The most commercial of these was glam metal, a fusion of 70s glam rock and heavy metal centred around powerful but tuneful guitar wizardry, booming drums and emotive pop choruses. The group's typically taken on an overblown, often androgynous theatrical aesthetic. It's also known by the more derogatory term hair metal and synonymous with a bunch of other interchangeable descriptors. With their hook-laden anthems and eye-catching glitz, these acts came to define the nascent visual era of MTV, which made stars of the likes of Motley Crue, Poison, Cinderella, Quiet Riot, Winger and Rat. It was an age when metal ruled the world. Its epicentre was the Sunset Strip in West Hollywood. Between legendary clubs like the Whiskey A Go-Go, the Viper Room, the Roxy, Gazzarri's and the Troubadour, long-haired young men braved the relentless hedonism of sex, drugs and rock and roll. There were a few female acts, but it was hard to tell the girls from the boys. Corrupt A&R men would sign bands and get them in to shoot videos at such a rate that they might as well have installed a revolving door on set. Recent films like The Dirt and Nothing But a Good Time paint an enduring picture of it all. But this success wasn't to last. The creative well ran dry, with artists prioritising image over vision and substance abuse over musical substance. Many came around too close to the end of the decade or too early in the next to have any real impact. When it all came crashing down, even those who had risen to the top just had further to fall. Penelope Spheeris' toe-curling The Decline of Western Civilization Part 2, The Metal Years, documents a conveyor belt of mortifying starry-eyed hopefuls, but is worth watching solely for a scene involving Wasp's Chris Holmes in a swimming pool.
Yeah, I'm a happy camper.
The final nail was hammered into the coffin with the arrival of a cardigan-clad knight armed with a Fender Jaguar. Kurt Cobain's Nirvana, alongside a wave of rising stars largely from Seattle, popularised grunge, a punk-based evolution of rock that focused on alienation, introspection and frustration, therefore antithetical to hair metal's extravagant ethos. As the audience's attention moved from Pretty Boy Floyd to Pearl Jam, the firework that was Hollywood's music was extinguished like a flickering candle, and the strip fell silent. As this cultural revolution changed the face of mainstream rock, the gaming industry was experiencing a similar seismic shift. The emergence of Sonic the Hedgehog, who'd go on to help define the era and the medium itself, and whose Mega Drive or Genesis soundtracks were wall-to-wall earworms. Don't pretend you can't hum every note of Green Hill Zone, never mind the infectious, funky basslines of Mystic Cave, the soaring histrionics of Flying Battery, and, of course, the Doomsday Zone, factually the single greatest piece of music ever written. It's true, look it up. As far back as the Mega Drive days, Sonic's developers were hiring the services of pop stars. The earliest example is the Japanese band Dreams Come True, whose member Masato Nakamura composed for the first couple of games. An instrumental digitised version of their song Sweet Dream was even used in the options menu and ending scene of Sonic 2. The person behind the next title in the series was slightly better known, in fact one of the most famous musicians of all time. The story goes that Michael Jackson himself was actually brought in for the development of Sonic 3, although the extent of his involvement and how much of his work remains in it is disputed, but that's a tale for another video. Towards the end of the 90s, a new millennium dawned, which saw Sega release the Dreamcast, the first of the 6th generation consoles. While it was to be their last, it was a trailblazer, offering novel peripherals and, most significantly, online multiplayer functionality. As technology progressed, the burgeoning cinematic graphics and sleek immersive gameplay necessitated a soundtrack to match. Jun Senoue was a young musician from Japan who had joined Sega prior to the making of Sonic 3, rising through the ranks to become lead composer for 1998's Sonic Adventure, the mascot's first proper 3D outing and the cutting-edge console's flagship title. Being a long-term hair metal aficionado, Senoue decided to bring some ex-rock stars under Sega's auspices to give the game a unique sound. Suddenly, these 80s rockers who had been languishing following the genre's collapse found themselves on an exciting new venture. A sizable contribution came from Johnny Gioeli, frontman of the American band Hardline, who possessed a remarkable soulful voice, equal parts gravel and satin. Their original lineup featured his sister's boyfriend, who fortunately happened to be Journey's Neil Schon, and together they smashed attendance records on the Sunset Strip, previously held by The Doors and Van Halen. Sadly, their stunning debut album Double Eclipse arrived just a little too late for them to blow up, right on the cusp of the musical massacre of Hollywood. Johnny, who never understood the appeal of Pearl Jam's off-key mumbling, admitted he still gets chills about the devastating effect that grunge had on his career. Jun contacted Johnny via a friend in Los Angeles who knew Doug Aldrich, a guitarist who's played with such luminaries as Whitesnake and Dio, but who serendipitously had been in Johnny's early outfit, Brunette, and had him sing on one of his solo albums. Jun and Johnny then came together as Crush 40, with the mindset of creating music as though for a movie score. Tying into this idea, the spectacular opening of Adventure introduced players to Sonic's new world, with their track Open Your Heart heralding the Blue Blur's turn-of-the-century makeover. The action-packed hard rock, coupled with Johnny's rousing lyrics about fighting evil and never giving up, matched the get-up-and-go attitude of Sonic to a T, while showing off the hardware's potential. Along with Johnny, Jun brought in Ted Poley, who had fronted New York glamsters Danger Danger, a fizz-bang of coiffed hair and life affirmation, who despite having major label backing and tours with Kiss and Alice Cooper under their belts, also felt the wrath of Cutt. Alice in Chains even opened for them in Seattle before exploding in popularity themselves, complicit in the glamicide and forcing Poley back to his day job. No surprise then that when the opportunity came to work with Sega, he jumped at the chance, singing the upbeat theme of Big the Cat. The sense of carefree fun embodied by Danger Danger was fittingly transposed onto the most chill member of the cast. Not the most popular character of course, but to this day Ted, an avid toy collector, doesn't care and even has a figurine of Big, seeing himself as immortalised by the dim-witted fishing feline. Also on the books was California's Tony Harnell, best known as the vocalist for Norwegian band TNT, who enjoyed commercial success through the 80s, especially in their native Scandinavia, with their sublime melodies penetrated by his piercing high notes. He did Sonic's theme, It Doesn't Matter, a mid-tempo rocker that lyrically reflects the protagonist's headstrong heroism. And it isn't just these trademark tunes that are imbued with rock. Thanks to Senoue, a large part of the game's overall soundscape is based in it, with groovy riffs and sleek licks gracing various levels and even the menu screens, giving everything a pretty consistent vibe. Elsewhere, it ranges from gruff hip-hop to electronic and sultry jazz, most notably in the character themes. Senoue's objective had been to have bespoke tracks for them all, now that they could talk and act more expressively, and establish how the series would sound going forward. And it's in this next instalment that they'd really kick things up a notch. Sonic Adventure 2 is where the series' legacy would be solidified, at least musically. The 2001 sequel saw past contributors returning as well as a number of new recruits, whose talents would decorate the story of Sonic's arguably definitive 3D release. Ted Poley co-wrote and sang the theme of the opening stage, an experience that he found intense compared to his Danger Danger days, the words necessitating a lot of alliteration and urgency with no time for breath. He truly rose to the occasion though, spawning the classic Escape from the City. The introductory level sees a fugitive Sonic rolling around at the speed of sound as he races through a fictionalised San Francisco to get away from the armed forces who have mistaken him for a criminal. The accompanying song is a joyous slice of pop-punk-esque brilliance that perfectly matches the pace and tone of the course. It's deeply ingrained in the minds of many gamers, cherished to the point that nearly 16,000 people once signed a petition to have it replace the Star Spangled Banner as the American national anthem. I still vividly remember the first time I ever played City Escape, doing so over and over again, agreeing with this poster. Believe it or not, due to the misfortunes of glam metal, Ted couldn't afford a Dreamcast at the time and wouldn't see the finished sequence until the Sonic Boom convention years later. I mean, how's that for irony? Ted got the job because he was a glam metal musician, but because he was a glam metal musician, he didn't have any money. He once lamented to me the fact that he only got a one-off payment for the track, whereas if it had been a hit outside of the game he'd be rich from it, but values the many new fans he gained just about as much. SA2 also presented what is perhaps Crush 40's signature song, Live and Learn, used as a leitmotif throughout, with its full version being the accompaniment to Super Sonic and Super Shadow's epic outer space showdown with the big bugger of a lizard that's trying to blow up the Earth. With its arresting, blistering fretboard work from Senoue and impassioned, pleasing wail from Johnny, it became something of an anthem for a generation of gaming enthusiasts and a mainstay of the overall series. It would make appearances in various media that followed, including Sonic X and the third Sonic movie, for which Johnny signed a deal with Paramount to license it. He was, however, involved in a legal dispute with Sega recently, claiming that they violated their agreement by using it in various games over the years without paying him royalties. The case has since been dismissed, but hopefully it doesn't tarnish his decades-long relationship with the company. Tony Harnell returned too, providing backing vocals on the aforementioned Escape from the City, as well as a reimagined, faster version of It Doesn't Matter. It also introduced Paul Shortino of LA's Rough Cutt, who never quite scaled the heights that their 80s peers did, but did serve as a launchpad for their members to find success with other groups, guitarist Jake E. Lee even joining Ozzy Osbourne's ensemble. Shortino wrote and sang the unintentionally hilarious lyrics of Dr. Eggman's theme. "My name is Eggman, don't forget my name, if you ask me again, I'll tell you the same." It sounds like Homer Simpson's Mr. Plow song. It's still a good tune though, with more of an industrial element than straight up rock, in reference to the mad scientist's obsession with engineering and mechanics. The Dreamcast's connective capability, along with the rise of the social internet, led to a palpable online Sonic community beginning to coalesce around this time. Sure, these games have plenty of flaws. You could argue that the series started to go downhill at this point, but still managed to capture the fandom's collective imagination. And the excellent soundtrack played a huge part in that. Oh, I'm getting all nostalgic now. Maybe I should do a video looking at the Sonic Adventure titles more broadly. Sonic Heroes followed at the end of 2003, which saw Crush 40 perform its breezy titular opener, as well as another storming classic in the form of What I'm Made Of, during the climactic battle with Metal Sonic's Mega Digivolved form. Ted and Tony also came back to do the theme of Team Sonic, a celebratory call to arms detailing the different traits of Sonic, Tails and Knuckles. Interestingly, following Paul Shortino's appearance on Sonic Adventure 2, another member of Rough Cutt showed up here, namely Amir Derak, now in his new industrial troupe Julian K, to do This Machine for Team Shadow. Yet one more Glam artist got on board with Sonic Heroes 2, Gunnar Nelson from the eponymous duo Nelson that he formed with his twin brother and who went double platinum with their debut album After the Rain in 1990. Failing that, you might instead know them from the song Two Heads Are Better Than One from Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, although they were credited as Power Tool, since their A&R rep wouldn't let them use their actual moniker prior to their album coming out. In Sonic Heroes, Gunnar provided the theme of Team Chaotix, in which he surprisingly got away with the line "brain damaged." In the years that followed, Ted would return to do the snappy Race to Win for Sonic Rivals 2, reportedly assisted by Tony. In the same year, Sonic and the Secret Rings was released, and while Jun Senoue wasn't involved in its production, its tracks Seven Rings in Hand and Worth a Chance were sung by Steve Conte. Known for his work on a number of anime shows, he's also a former member of glam punk legends the New York Dolls, and currently the sixth stringer for Michael Monroe of Hanoi Rocks, equally influential on the hair metal scene. This tradition of bringing in bands and musicians to soundtrack the series continues to this day, most recently in Sonic Frontiers, which featured Sleeping with Sirens vocalist Kellen Quinn. But it's been a long time since a glam artist was involved in an original project. The 80s rock style really gave that era of Sonic such a distinctive personality, searing it into people's brains in 2000s pop culture. I'll always look back on it fondly, being a huge fan of that kind of music and of course a huge fan of gaming, especially Sonic at the time. Glam metal itself has enjoyed a resurgence in recent years. Def Leppard, Motley Crue and Poison did a huge stadium tour together. Guns N' Roses made a comeback once thought so unlikely it was dubbed the Not in This Lifetime tour. Satirical shredders Steel Panther headlined London's Wembley Arena and received a rapturous applause on America's Got Talent, while the genre remains particularly popular in Scandinavia and Finland, with more contemporary groups like The Cruel Intentions and Reckless Love. Whether it's old schoolers revelling in nostalgia or a modern wave of fans, it's apparent that people still have an affinity with big hair and big riffs. Johnny continues touring with Hardline as well as German guitarist Axel Rudi Pell, doing the odd live appearance with Crush 40 too. Ted's flying solo but still belting out the Danger Danger hits. Tony rejoined TNT in recent years after a very brief dalliance with Skid Row in 2015, while Nelson and Rough Cutt are also still active, albeit there are two versions of the latter. Such is the longevity and tenacity of these kinds of acts, but there's no denying that their involvement in the games opened doors for them. Hell, try going to a Hardline concert without seeing someone in a Sonic t-shirt. Gaming's fastest Hedgehog has had plenty of ups and downs in his career, and glam metal's mass appeal has been similarly mercurial. But one thing's for sure, once upon a time, Sonic rocked.